Sorry to interrupt the discussion. Seems to be lively and glad welcome to the regular meeting.
Well, I think mine is.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of the University City of Texas. It is, Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order now at 6:31 p.m. and call for quorum check, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Excuse. Oh, we'll discuss in a moment.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Shelby.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Quorum is present. We shall proceed. The invocation this evening will be given by Councilmember Najarian. I'll lead us in the pledges afterwards with everyone please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect our city now and in the future. May we act wisely and well and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the betterment of our great community and citizens. Lord, we ask a special blessing on those from our community who have recently passed, and that you may comfort their families in their time of grief. We also ask, Lord, that you watch over, protect, and bless all of our first responders, active military, and veterans of this great country. In Jesus' glorious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming this evening. Interesting agenda to discuss. So I'm glad that you're all here. You're here for a variety of different reasons. First thing we have to do this evening is to consider the absence of one of our members, Mayor Pro Tem Neville, as a personal issue tonight. Nothing that I think is really overly serious or whatever. But so he's not going to be with us this evening. So I do need approval from council to excuse him.
Move to approve.
Second. Councilmember Najarian, second by Councilmember Shelby. Further discussion? Okay, Chris, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
That motion passes. Councilmember Buck, I like the background in your appearance this evening. It was very good.
Oh, that is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the background, Mr. Mayor. As far as you know.
It looks pretty much like Pittsburgh to me. Okay, all right. Next item is opportunity to present something to the city. And I would ask Ms. Jody Thomas to please come on up and take care of this presentation. I think you're all going to enjoy this very much.
Okay, well, it's not just me. How about, can I get all the green
You
shirts?
can get the entire.
I do need to address this. Are you distressed? Green shirt. Okay.
Most of the audience.
Oh, wow.
They're all smiling.
Yeah, look at that. All these fantastic. It's good to have good people behind you, right? Look at that. Okay, so we are the Universal City Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. Sometimes I say UCPA when I'm being lazy. We have worked, or this last year, 2022, all the green shirts, and there's a lot more of us, but all the, including Councilmember Najarian, we worked really hard. Did a lot of fundraising and had a goal. And I'm really super excited to present a check to our Universal City Police Department. We have Police Chief Johnny Siemens. This is from a grateful membership, a grateful community. We were tasked with working really hard throughout the year. We were given a goal of a new piece of equipment for their workout area, and we made that goal. And we're so excited about presenting a check for $10,000.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This community is so unbelievable. It's one thing that separates it, probably the thing that separates it from all the other cities. Thank you, Councilman, thank you. This will not only serve the police department, but it'll serve the entire city and everybody here that uses the fitness facility that we have over at the fire department. It's a generational gift because the equipment that we'll buy with it will be paid forward to many generations of officers and city staff and employees. And it'll also increase the service, which is almost impossible to do from our staff. But it'll increase officer service. Empirical data has demonstrated time and again that better mental, physical, and spiritual wellness makes for a better officer. And so this goes a long way for that goal. We started a fitness program when I got here a couple years ago, and we are well underway, and stuff like this continues to make that possible. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. More than you know.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Hey, can I get the check?
And if you're interested
No,
in joining our
I'll take the
group,
big check. Happy Gilmore said? I said one of the big checks.
I'm gonna go through the
That is a piece that's really fantastic. Thank you very much, Academy people, everybody, for doing what you've done. And also, Waste Management has a presentation they would like to make too. Chris?
I'm so moved. Well, y'all beat me by a couple $1,000, so I'm a little embarrassed. And I'm just by myself. But we do an annual contribution to the city for our services here. We like to consider ourselves partners with the community, not just the guys that are coming by picking up your trash and everything you want away from your house. So each year we have promised to the city that we'll contribute $2,000 to Snowfest and then $5,000 to 5 different various organizations. One of them is you also. Hopefully we can put some money back in your bank account tonight with this. So, wanted to bring out this check. I think our check, there are actual physical checks in the mail, but $7,000 to the city, and we'll continue to do that each year until we're here. So thank you all.
Thank you.
all right.
Is there any other really great news somebody wants to share with us before we continue on? More checks? Everybody got a check? All right. Chris, thanks very much. Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it very much. All right, let's move on to our business for this evening. The first item is our consent agenda. It's under tab number A. All matters are listed under this item are considered to be routine, as you can see, and enacted by one motion. There will be no separate votes on that unless someone wants to pull an item out of the consent agenda and we like on that separately, so that you need to let me know that you want to do that. But there are 3 items here. Does anyone want to pull one of these at all? Okay, so A is the minutes of the January 17th meeting. Number B is an ordinance on the teacher land use plan, commercial services and overlay to HDR, high density residential, providing severability, and that is for at 2902 Pat Booker Road. And item C is another ordinance for approximately 13.968 acre property located at 2902 Pat Booker. This is another one. This is related to a zoning change. So one's a land use plan change, one's a zoning change. So those are the items on the consent agenda. 2 of them are second readings. There are no changes on those readings. So move to approve. Second. Shelby, second. Najarian. Discussion, anyone? All right, call for the vote, please, Chris.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. This is a time to provide citizens an opportunity to address council on items of concern, matters that they think are really important to them. And we welcome their participation. And I'm glad that we have had actually 5 people who have signed up this evening. And so I'll call you up in order of the signed in on the roster there. So we'll start out with Ms. Janice, is it Hughes? Hughes. Yes, ma'am.
Shoes, blues, news, occasional snooze.
Yes, but give us your name and address for the record, please.
Janice Hughes, 170 Clear Oak, University City. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am not an expert in any of this. I just have some personal philosophy and feelings I'd like to switch. I know there's going to be some discussion later about the golf course. I have not been following that. I, see all the things going on there and think that's nice. But what I hope the council considers is, they asked me when I signed in what I was going to talk about, and I said fiscal responsibility, and yes, I was for it. I hope y'all can remember that anybody that has a budget, me particularly, and everybody else, when you look at your budget, you have needs and you have wants. And I think if we went around the room and asked everybody, what do you think your top 2 needs are for University City, they probably would look different. But I think they would also look different than what we would put in the want category. For me personally, I think my 2 biggest needs have to do with safety. I live in Meadow Oaks. It's a well-established older neighborhood. I've been there since 1981. I think 2 of the needs, not only there, but in some other neighborhoods, were streetlights and speed bumps. And I say this because if you think about streetlights, see if I don't want Sam's Club, sorry, I'm not there. Well, this is supposed to be my flashlight, and you're supposed to see a little bit of light coming down here. The streetlights on our street, you have light coming down here, then you have a big dark space, then you have light coming down over here. I happen to live in one of those dark spaces. I try and keep my yard lit up. Not everybody does. In the last 2 weeks, 4 of my immediate neighbors have had cars damaged or broken into, or trucks. And I'm like, what? What are we doing here? The other one is speed bumps, because our street is not as wide as Meadowland. And if you have a car parked here and a car parked here, there is not room for 2 cars to go down here. And we do have some speeders in our neighborhood, both on motorcycles and cars. And if you had a speed bump, it would at least keep them airborne for a bit as they went down the street. But at night particularly, if you're in one of the dark areas and there's a car coming and a car coming, one car actually has to pull over to be able to get through the street. So those are my 2 wants that I would put at the top of my list. And my needs. The wants would be community gardens. I think particularly looking at more apartments and things coming and what we're doing with some of our beautiful parks, a community garden would be a really wonderful thing. I'm sure if we went through the room, everybody would have different things to add. But I hope in general what you consider is needs and wants. If all our needs are full, fantastic, let's go for the wants. But if all the needs aren't full, let's push some of the wants away for later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, next individual signed up this evening is Mr. Thomas Maxwell.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Tom Maxwell. I live at 1251 Bloom Trail. I've been a resident since the late 90s, and I'd like to discuss the venue tax a little bit, but I know it's going to be debated a little later on. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I am not a golfer. I have been very, very familiar with golf courses. I have been an accountant over golf courses and income as far as internal controls and things of that nature, but I'm not a golfer. I've never really picked up the game. I do enjoy athletics though. But there is a need for a golf course. But I've prepared a statement. I'm just going to read my statement and we'll go from there. I'd like to discuss the venue tax concerning the golf course. I believe the council has forgotten that the University City does not have a standalone golf course. We have a conference center with a golf course. The conference center is the city's marketing body and a means for private businesses to advertise and sponsor events as part of their individual marketing programs. Many businesses budget marketing monies throughout the year annually for these events. The golf course draws a diverse clientele from all walks of life, unlike any other sport. It is natural for the venue, it's a natural venue for the conference center to use to draw other people in and for marketing. It also gives the opportunity a wider range for our sponsors, or the businesses who sponsor these programs. Individual team events just does not draw the people. The golf course is used for numerous community activities throughout the years, such as toga runs, high school golf programs, Thursday family entertainment, family nights, holiday brunches, dinner, and a movie nights, casino nights, father-daughter dances, mother-son dances, Easter egg drop, not to mention the popular private events, weddings, socials, meetings, etc. All these bring community together and give businesses, forgive me, there's only 8 more pages. Gives the community leaders the opportunity to expand the network capabilities. The goal of the conference center is to break even, meaning that they bring in sufficient sales to cover costs, including labor and products, which is the vast majority do. The venue tax provides a cash cushion to cover the city costs due to facility infrastructure upkeep as well as additional marketing opportunities as they arise. Diverting the venue tax to road construction will divert funds from the upkeep of the conference center, take away valuable marketing and networking program for the city and city businesses. At best, it would provide a few dollars for roads. Bottom line, Mr. Snyder, if you have something to say, you can come up to front and say it. At best, it provides a few dollars for roads. At the worst, you would have to wait maybe over $1 million for 1 mile of road construction. How many years would you need to bring up and save up enough money to actually do a large block of road surfaces? One of the things that would happen, we would have some nice new roads, and all of our businesses would suffer from that because our citizens would be using those roads to go out of town, to shop outside of town because our local businesses are slowly closing up. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating about this, I ask you this question. Do you know how many businesses right now have closed in the past 2 years due to COVID, inabilities of maintaining cost, logistics, supplies, things of that nature? We've lost quite a few. Right now, I know of 4 businesses that are struggling to stay open in Universal City. They're actually looking for possibility of venues in outside of the city areas. They don't want to leave Universal City, but they may have to because of just logistics and demographics alone. So basically, it's not a threat. If you divert the monies to the golf course or from the golf course, is it going to solve these problems? No, it's not going to solve it. Is it going to make it happen? No, it's not necessarily going to make it happen. But I will guarantee you this, if you forget that the conference center is and not utilize the full marketing ability of the conference center with the golf course, you're going to start losing businesses because you're going to stop losing the draw of the outside communities coming in. We're not going to have anything to offer them. That's one man's opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. But one that's been experienced that utilized golf courses for networking, I've seen millions and millions of dollars in networking community meetings, and I'm sure a lot of our golfers here have done a lot of networking within their businesses throughout the years. It is a viable center. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Very good. Okay, next individual signed this evening is Mr. Bernie Rubal.
Bernie Rubel, 635 Buffalo Drive. Cornell resident for 40 years. Essentially, I appreciate Mr. Maxwell's and the other residents' comments. The truth of the matter is, it's not a few $1,000s. The truth of the matter is, in venue tax alone, we paid $17 million a day according to recent evaluation by Mr. Ned Smith, council. Basically, that's only the tip of the iceberg, because it doesn't include general funds, which is fine, the city has admitted they're also had funded in the past into the golf course, or capital funds, which have been shown into the grass course, and more recently, $100,000, $110,000 in hotel taxes. So basically, the golf course is not a small operation. The question tonight is where to best spend the venue tax, or to spend it at all. We've heard about the struggling businesses. Well, what's the stimulus for a business? The stimulus for the business is community money flow. So if we take the money out of the residents' pockets, who, by the way, have a median household income of $31,000 to $33,000, not $50,000 as our staff does on the city, but $31,000 to $33,000. If you take pennies out of their pocket, it means a lot. Okay? And where do they spend those pennies? They spend them locally in the economy to preserve the very structure that Mr. Maxwell's presenting. I propose the opposite argument. The less venue tax, the better our community will be. Now, with regard to the golf course, I'm going to read you a statement. We all know that the golf course was approved by the city as an enterprise operation, meaning that it has to pay for itself. Now, the mayor was a member of the original golf course council committee, or very soon thereafter. So he's
Original.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to read you a statement from the 2008 audit again. During the prior year, the city changed the management of the golf course from a contract service to city employees. With improvement in management of the golf course, the deficit is expected to diminish over time. 2008. Mr. Maxwell came on board in 2010, and also Mr. Neville was on board during that period of time, and of course Mr. Williams was there in that period of time. In 2020, with Mr. Williams, Mr. Maxwell, Mr. Neville, Mr. Goolsby, Mr. Shelby, and Mr. Najarian, I believe you were on council at that time. In 2020, let me read you what was on the audit. During the prior fiscal year, the city changed the management of the golf course from a contract service to the city employees, and with the improvement in management of the golf course, and the deficit is expected to be eliminated over time. Okay, so basically now here we are at 2023. 2023, did I leave something back there? Terribly sorry. Yeah. Here we are in 2023 with our city essentially taking over the golf course, and now essentially we have future unanticipated expenses. Why are they unanticipated? They were presented at the budget proposal, the budget workshop. None of the stuff was in the budget workshop. Okay, why is it being presented now? Because we paid for the golf course, or soon will pay for the golf course operations. The golf course is an enterprise operation. It should pay for itself. If you can't manage the golf course, do something about it. Okay? Council, please do something about it. I'm on record with email to all council members saying, here's a plan to save the golf course. I don't care if you use my plan, but I do care that you don't use the city model that's going to run us further in debt. Thank you for your time.
All right, next individual this evening, Ms. Carol Butler.
Hi, I'm Carol Butler. I live at 501 Kimberly Drive. I just thank you for letting me talk, and actually I was a little nervous about this because I don't ever want to disagree with Mr. Maxwell because I admire him and respect him deeply, and I am not disagreeing with you. I don't mind that golf course. My son loves that golf course. But I started thinking, you know, we all have to be more mindful of the money that we spend right now. I think I'm sort of confused because Mr. Maxwell has pointed out, why we really need that place because, boy, all the conferences and everything are going on over there and it brings things into the city. I've heard that forever. And he's right. Businesses are leaving. Businesses aren't here. I go down Pat Booker Road and I go, this is so sad. Nobody is helping those businesses stay in business. We've already been it with Walmart when they were over down here. If you're living here long enough to know, we gave them everything to stay. They drove all the businesses out and then they moved to Nacogdoches. Well, now we really need them because we really need those tax dollars and there's nothing really to support us. So it's not that I'm against the golf course, but my confusion is coming. Is it a business or are we supposed to take it over? Is it ours? If it's a conference center, or is it a golf course for a few people that use it as a golf course? That's where my confusion has come. Well, if we own it, that's a different story. But after all of these years, I started thinking about my own son. He was a baby. He needed a lot of help as a baby. Well, I'm a tough person, I guess, because you know what? I didn't want him to stay a baby. I wanted him to grow, and he did grow. And then that wasn't good enough. I said, okay, now you go to college. That's not good enough. You go to pharmacy school. He had to get on his own 2 feet and make it. Mama is not going to support him. We're mama. That's where we are. But you just got to clarify, is this a business? Then they got to grow up. If it is a conference center, then we need to take it over. Something has to give. And I really prayed about this. I go, who am I? Who am I? I don't even know. I mean, I'm sitting here, but you have to float a loan right now to buy an egg. And we're spending millions on this golf course. You know that we're kind of the laughing stock now of people around us because the golf courses have closed and cities aren't willing to keep paying for them. So just clarify, is this a conference center or a golf course? And I got, every time you have a problem, which apparently I do, there's a solution. What that money could be used for is our police department. I want, when they come to you and say, we need this, I want to be able to say, hey, we're going to do it because we got some extra money. Or the fire department. They're wonderful people, but they need help, especially in this day and this climate. We need to support them. Streets. This young man over here, I walked up to him out of the blue. He doesn't know me from Adam. And I said, I live in Rose Garden Estates. I have he goes, Pershing. Yes, Pershing. I don't even live on Pershing. But I think those poor people that live there, the street is intolerable in this city. Rose Garden Estates was one of the first major places to be built, city in this city. It should be a treasure. It should be a landmark, actually. But that's just my opinion. So that's what I'd like to use the money for. Police, fire, streets, and then I'd like to take a big portion and just hire a man. Yes, a man, ladies, a man. And have them know what he's talking about and bring business into Universal City. That we are a little jewel. The people that live here love it. We love living here. And we want it to be a place of a destination, not a drive-through. But again, to sum up, I have nothing against the golf course. Like I say, I know my son would love to play. But we've got to make up our mind, what is it really to all the people, not just a few, all the people in this community. Conference center, I get it. Golf course, I don't get it. So that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. And if I made a mistake, please forgive me. Okay?
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Appreciate your comments. Okay. The final individual signer this evening is Mr. Richard Edwards.
My name
Richard Edwards. I live at 209 Trudy, and I am a candidate for City Council. My website is groundedlogic.com. I'm here tonight to address Tab Delta. After 20 years, the golf course is finally paid for. Now it seems it will take even more money over the next 20 years to keep it afloat. Reviewing tonight's agenda packet, I can only assume that there are those who wish to continue earmarking sales tax revenue to fund this public luxury item, which most residents don't even use. Common sense dictates that if after 20 years the golf course cannot pay its own way, including maintenance and repair, that it is financially insolvent. Personally, I like the idea of our city golf course, and I think it would be very sad if it were to close down. But rather than spending public money on a luxury item, our tax dollars would be better allocated, our tax dollars would be better allocated to repair and maintain our city streets and infrastructure, which is a necessity. Then the city may not have to issue the bonds which were just approved in our last election. The issuance of bonds is the issuance of public debt. Debt every resident will be saddled with for years to come. What roads that are to be fixed with this imminent debt is a secret the city holds close to its chest. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but believe me, I could. Civic duty and fiscal responsibility both demand that if the golf course cannot pay its own way by now, it's time to act pragmatically and go a different direction. It's time to allow the golf course to thrive or fail on its own and reallocate those funds to street repair or some other necessity. After all, anyone who cannot afford to fix their own roof has no business purchasing a timeshare in a luxury resort. That's grounded logic. And once again, my website is groundedlogic.com.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Okay, those are the only individuals that signed up to speak this evening. Would anyone else like to address council? Excuse me, they didn't have a chance to sign up earlier.
Can I have just a 1 or 2 sentence redo?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to know,
Please come on up so we can hear you.
I haven't been to the center since a long time ago when they had Easter buffet, and my kids were still in school. I would like to know if anybody has any idea how many Universal City residents have actually had anything to do with the golf course or the convention center. I know they're doing lots of nice things now, but I don't know what percentage of people of Universal City are actually taking advantage of that and have been there.
Okay, good, thanks for the comment. All right, okay. If there are no one else, then we'll move on to our items of business this evening. So we'll move on to our business, which is tab number 8, tab number B, discuss and to consider a petition for final acceptance of public improvement of the Orchard Park subdivision, Unit 2, to include the water system, sanitary sewer system, and drainage and street systems. So, Ms. Turner, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the phase 2 of the Orchard subdivision that is over off of FM 1518 on the other side of the Cibolo Creek. So this is for their second phase, which so far in our city is the final phase. The Orchard Park Unit 2 is 21.9 acres, which is 84 lots. The entire subdivision is 47 acres and 170 residential lots and some 900 open par series. So our public works director and our city engineer have inspected the public improvements. Everything has been corrected and or constructed to our specifications. And so at this time, we are asking the City Council to authorize me to sign this final acceptance, and then the streets and roads will become part of the Universal City infrastructure.
Okay, any specific comments, questions? I'll take a motion, and then we'll have discussion.
Second.
Councilmember Vaughan, second by Councilmember Shelby. Any discussion? Open it up. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any specific discussion. This is, I don't, you're all familiar where Orchard Park is. It's across 1518. And if you are a golfer and you stand on the third tee, you can see exactly what's happening all along. So anyway, we'll pass that on and I'll call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. We'll continue on now to tab number C. Discuss and to consider resolution 943, 2023. As you can see up there, it's a resolution supporting the acceptance of grant funding from the Office of the Governor of Homeland Security Grant Program, and it's the Alumni Situational Awareness Platform Sustainment Project, and authorizing the police chief to sign the award.
So, yeah, it sounds like we're getting money. We're not. We're actually applying to get money. So this is much like our CBDG projects, where we have to have a city council authorization to sign and submit the applications so that we can go ahead and apply for grants. And so that's what we have before us this evening, and this is specifically for Homeland Security.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Najarian, second by Councilmember Goolsby. Discussion, anyone on this particular issue? Yes, Phil.
What's our commitment if we're awarded? What is our cost?
Typically, when they're Homeland Security grants, we don't have a commitment.
So it would be 100%.
But I don't know which ones they're applying for, because when you go in and look at their grant programs, they have a plethora of programs that we can identify. But if there is a commitment, that typically would come out of the police budget anyway.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, call for the vote, please, Chris.
Councilmember Najarian.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, sorry. I had a-
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Buck, pardon me. Interrupt anytime, sometimes I forget to look over to you, Stephen.
Sorry, that's okay. Kim, if you would, is there a possibility that we could authorize our chief of police to sign this over the course of many fiscal years? Or is it a requirement that it has to be signed each and every fiscal year? Thank you.
It has to be, like with CBDG, there has to be a new resolution every year that they decide that they want to go out for grants. So it'll be happening every year.
Thank you, Mr. Buck.
Thank you.
Please interrupt anytime if I don't look over there. Sorry, my friend. Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Then let's call for that vote, please, Chris.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
That motion passes. We'll move on. I'm going to take a executive privilege here. I'm going to move tab E to up in front of tab D. We'll conduct that really quickly. And then we'll move on to the presentation on the venue text. So we'll move to tab E, which is to consider resolution 944, 2023, the resolution calling for a general election to be held on May 6, 2023, to elect city officers and approving the authorizing contract documents and procedures therefore into.
Thank you, Mayor. This is normally a perfunctory item. It's a very difficult item for staff to get on the agenda. As you know, we are in two counties now. We're in Bexar County and we're in Guadalupe County. Bexar County is a very big county, and so they have voting centers for May and November elections. Guadalupe County is a very small county, and they have only voting centers in November, which means that we have residents now who are living within the boundaries of Universal City who have nowhere to go vote because they have to vote in a city building in the county in which they reside in. We have no city buildings over there. So we try to coordinate with the election judges for both one of them to see if they would accommodate us. Guadalupe County does not have voting centers, which means you can go and vote anywhere within the county, no matter where you live, no matter what city you're in. They only do that for November elections. They don't do anything for May elections. It has to be at our city facility, which we don't have. So after a lot of work by Kristen, in talking with the judges and the Secretary of State, we tried to use the Selma building, but it's not in our city, so we couldn't use it. We tried to use one of the Schertz or the county buildings, and the Secretary of State would not let us use it. So what we were able to do after a lot of finagling and begging, quite frankly, is we did get the Bexar County election judge to agree to take the 20 voters that we have right now over in Guadalupe and allow them to vote in Bexar County, but they can only vote at the Universal City Library. Now that's not going to bear well for the future as we continue to grow on that side. It's highly unlikely that we'll ever have a building. The only thing that will resolve this in the future is if we take our May elections and we move them to the uniform election in November. I only tell you that now because we're gonna have to get some kind of plan in place to try to address that as we go into the next few years. And so, as you will know, the state authorized cities to determine at some time whether they had their May or November election. Other cities have moved to November, some have not, but they're completely in Bexar County, so it doesn't matter for them. So as we continue to have housing out in Guadalupe County, we're gonna have to be very careful to make sure that those people who live there, who are Universal City residents, have the same voting capability as everybody who's in the Bexar County side. And so, in talking with the Secretary of State and the election judges, probably going to a November uniform election date for council and for any special elections may have to go to November. So I just want to let you know before you approve this that we will be coming back to you in the near future to bring you some more information on that, and then set up the process that if you decide you want to go that way, how you would go about doing it and when it would come into effect. So with that, we just need to approve this and we'll accommodate 20 people.
We do have
one
neighbor
time.
cities that are in multiple counties now too, so I've had discussions with their mayors, and for instance, churches in Comel, Guadalupe, and Bexar County, and they have run into similar situations, so this is something we'll have to take a look at, obviously, down the road, and now that we do actually have part of Guadalupe County within our jurisdiction. So what before us tonight is this resolution calling for the general election in May. And I continue to give you that definition because of the conflict that we had. And thank you to Jackie Gallinan, for Bexar County to help accommodate us for this particular election coming up in May. Okay, so I'll need a motion.
Move for approval.
Councilmember Shelby.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Najarian. Discussion further, anyone? Yes, Paul.
Just bottom line, approving this, excuse me, will get us through this May election, which we've already had rolling, and then later on, we can have a deep dive into discussion about going right to November. With, I would guess that we would have, at that point, no more May elections.
We would have no more
No
what?
more May elections.
If and also
That is
decide.
correct.
I mean, yeah, if we decide to move that, it would all be November, it's just from the fact that we are alienating another side of our country.
Yes, we would be moving to the November uniform election date, which would be for the approval of council and mayor, as well as any other special election items.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, anyone else? Okay, call for the vote then, please, Chris.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Bug.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on then back to tab number D, which is to present and discuss venue tax revenue and capital improvement program for the Olympia Hills Golf Course, and it says conference center, but we actually, we now call it the event center, but it's same, one and the same. Okay, Ms. Turner?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I used conference center because that's what we used to call it. That's what the chapter 334, the state calls it a conference center,
That's
so
right.
my apologies. So before we start getting and talking about the numbers and the golf course needs, I thought maybe it would be good for us to talk about the general functionality of the golf course and how the operations that we have are sometimes in conflict with each other. So I thought I would start first talking about the building functionality. So the clubhouse itself, in the area around the clubhouse, was really only built to accommodate golfers. And it didn't take in weddings and other types of events that we can hold at the golf course. So what we have is some conflicts that sometimes prevent us from holding multiple events on there and therefore generating additional revenue for the golf course. So first of all, we can only serve one event at a time. So we can either have a golf course tournament and let them use the clubhouse, or we can have a wedding and let them use the clubhouse, but then the golf tournament people can't use the facility because we can't accommodate both. In addition to that, the wedding area that we have is very close to the cart barn. And most of you are married or have been married, and you can imagine brides don't want golfers driving through their wedding. And they don't want to see them in the bathroom, and they don't want to see them walking down the hall because it's their special day. On the flip side, golfers don't want to be told to stop and wait there around until the bride has come down the aisle in her cart and said her vows and moved on. And so there is a conflict that we have between the two operations that we have. In addition to that, when the golf course facility was first put together, it was meant to be just a golf and golf tournament facilities. Although we quickly realized when it opened that while we had the rounds, perhaps we didn't have enough food and beverage sales that we needed to support them. So we added in events and weddings and things of that nature. But the big problem with doing that is the kitchen that was put in was meant to do hot dogs, hamburgers, pretzels, light finger type foods. But when you have a wedding facility, right, you're making steaks and you're doing, decorative fruit trays and hors d'oeuvres and everything of that nature. So our kitchen, even though they've been trying to operate to provide for the weddings, is grossly undersized and outfitted in order to properly function for the weddings and the events we have. And I'll give an example. If they're lucky, the event is later in the day and they're prepping at night and there's no golfers in there, so they use the tables in the bar and the bar area to do prep work, which they shouldn't be doing, right? It should be done in the kitchen. And so that kind of conflict. And so there really is kind of a need to separate golf and event facilities. If you've gone to other sites, rarely do you see a golf tournament and a wedding ever crossing itself, or a golfer and a wedding crossing itself. They're usually in separate locations or at opposite ends of the building, but we don't have that. Everything's kind of commingled at this point. So that is one of the issues that we have. The other issue that we have, besides the kitchen being undersized and not being able to hold two events, is the parking lot is too small. So when we have large golf events and tournaments out there, they are overflowing into the non-impervious surface kind of area where we storage the sand and the gravel and things of that nature, and where the trash cans are located. They'll start parking back in there, and that's usually not enough either. Now they're filtering out into the residential streets. So if you're going down Phoenix on either direction, you, for some tournaments, can see a lot of cars parked out there, and you think, wow, somebody must be having a great party. Unfortunately, it's not a resident having a great party. It's us having a great party. Someone having a great party at our event, which is probably okay for golfers. But again, we go back to the wedding parties, which sometimes can be up to 100 to 150 people. Now they're getting out and they're wearing their dress shoes and their tuxedos and their high heels and their long dresses. And we have them out there parking either in the residential neighborhood and walking in, or Lord forbid, in the overflow parking area, which is full of sand and dirt and gravel and everything else. And so we find that they're unhappy about that, understandably so. So we have an undersized parking lot that we have to deal with. The other area that we have is that the carts that we have are maxed out, right? We have 75 carts. We know we could get additional rounds of golf every month on our busy days, bigger golf tournaments, if we had more carts. Ostensibly, if we had 10 more carts, we could probably in a year bring in an additional 5,000 rounds, which is a lot. But the problem is we have nowhere to put 10 carts, because if you've ever been down in the bottom, the cart barn is chock full of carts at night, because they have to be covered, because they're plugged in and they're recharging, and it's a safety issue, not only for the lithium batteries, but because we don't want anybody getting to them and we don't want any moisture in them. So yes, we could do more business if we had more carts, but we have nowhere to put them. We could get bigger tournaments if we have them, but we don't have enough carts. So you see, it's kind of a catch-all thing. The other thing that we have is that Katie and her staff hold semi-regular bridal shower, what do you call those? Bridal fairs, extravaganzas, where they try to bring brides out, and they book and they follow through to find out why you're going to book, why are you not booking with us, and things of that nature. They also hold visioning sessions with wedding planners, photographers, cake people, and they say, hey, you came out here and you looked at this place with your bride and her entourage. Why are you not booking here? And the number one reason is we don't have a bridal suite. So they're changing into they and the wedding party, mostly females, are changing into their dresses and getting their hair done and their makeup done hours before the event. But they want to do it in a bridal suite at the event that they're at. And because we don't have one, we lose a lot of weddings that way. And so that is a concern that we have. And again, that's not us just thinking that. That is the professionals who are bringing their clients to us saying, look, they didn't book because you don't have a bridal area. They don't want to be halfway dressed in their gown and have to leave the little small closet room that we get them and run out and use the public bathroom. And then, of course, now they're running into the golfers again, right? And so there's no intimacy in that experience for the brides. And obviously, if we had a bridal suite, we'd charge for it, like everybody else does. So, there's a cost associated with it, but there's also an earning capacity as well. And then one of the other issues that we have is when our golf facility was built, the golf technology was pretty low, right? You just had to have a point of sale system. People weren't using their Wi-Fi's to text and do everything else. There weren't GPS on the carts. They weren't wearing Apple Watches that they needed Wi-Fi so they could find out what was happening in their office. And so for both the golf and the event side, they're both very heavily technologically based right now, and we don't have the capacity in the Wi-Fi or in a fiber optics line to meet all of those needs. So what happens is our point of sale system, if you've ever been out there, I hope many of you have been, for a happy hour or another event, and they're trying to swipe their card. I'm sorry, sometimes it takes forever to check out, and people don't want that. It's a turnoff for them. We have the same thing on the golf side. There's not enough broadband or other technologically things that they need in order to pick up the pace of play and pay. Another issue that has been present from the date that the golf course was been built, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know who designed it and I don't know who built it. I'm going to say something bad. I hope they're no longer in this world. They did a crappy job. So what we have is a building that has two separate floor systems. We have one portion that is on a concrete foundation, and we have another part of the building that is on pier and beam, which you think, what's the big deal? Well, try putting a flooring system in on that. It is virtually impossible to get all of that married up and to get the material into it. So we've changed the flooring, I think, once since the facility's been built. It had purple and green and blue and red carpet, which was like a Scottish design. And so we went from that to a commercial one that we have in there today. But the traffic volume on that carpet is huge. You figure we have 40,000 rounds of golf and they're walking on carpet. I'm guessing we have at least 30,000 people a year that come through for the various events and social things that we have. So you have 70,000 people walking on the carpet, and it looks like a herd of goats lives there. It so easily can get stained and cannot get repaired. So what we need to do is figure out how to get a flooring system in there that can be married up, and it'll probably take, an architect or some kind of designer to figure out the flooring system for us. To marry it up so we can take the carpet out, because right now, if we take the carpet out, it brings the underlayment with me because they use some kind of glue to get that down, and it's ripping under the underlayment. So in preparation for that, we did have an engineer go out and look at the flooring system, in particular on the pier and beam side, because our concern is it even structurally sound on the pier and beam to rip out and kind of do a new underlayment, match it up, and put flooring in. He assured us it is structurally sound, the building is structurally sound, we have shifting in a few places that need to be patched, but we are structurally sound. So, we need to get the floor redone. I don't know how many people go out there and look at a floor. I do, because I'm that kind of person. I can't even stand to see a piece of paper on the floor. And when I look at that carpet, I wouldn't book a wedding there. I don't want to have my guests at my wedding that I'm spending, $20,000 on to see a carpet that looks like that. So we need to figure out the flooring. And then probably the last thing, and the thing that I know the least bit about, is our golf course greens, bunker tees, and fairways. So I know they have a lifespan because even the grass in your yard, you know, when it's shady, it dies depending on what kind of grass you have. So we know that our grass has a lifespan, and it's been there now for 23 years. The general lifespan is 25 years. I will give credit to Jeremy and his staff that they have been doing an excellent job to try to prolong the life of the grass that we have out there, which is another one, when we go back to who originally designed and built this, the grass that was put in at the golf course is not the type of grass that you would normally find in the state of Texas. And it is a grass that most golf courses aren't even using anymore. And so we are kind of in that place where we're growing our own plugs to patch the areas that we want, but we couldn't go in and do a whole fairway over. We would have to actually change the entire grass that's in that area. So I know that there are other, I call them ergonomic considerations when it comes to grasses, tees, bunkers, and fairways. I'm not going to address that because I'm not the expert in that. If you have questions on that, Jeremy is here. Yes, Jeremy, thank you for being here. And he can answer those. So generally speaking, from the vision groups that we've had with people from the outside, feedback from the now non-operating golf course committee, plus the various staff entities that we've brought in there with their various eyes and expertise. Those are the 9 big items that we see are not benefiting the golf course and allowing us to get the most use out of the building that we can. So with that, I know that some people think, oh, now she showed up with a capital improvement program. But if you've been here a while, we have presented various capital improvement programs to the council in the past. And we've gone off on year and year, and we've ticked those off. And so this is just our latest capital improvement program. We call it a vision. It is a capital improvement program. So with that, I will stop talking, and hopefully you all will take over the discussion. And if you have any questions, obviously we have all of your professional staff here who can speak to the golf course as well.
Yeah, you can direct your questions to Kim or to and the staff as well. So go ahead and open it up. This is a discussion item only for everyone this evening. There's no decisions. This is just a time of discussion. We'll start with Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of these questions are probably going to have you re-clarify some of the things. So I apologize if I'm making you repeat yourself. When we talk about the history of the golf course, what was the original plan? A golf course, and that's it? Is that the impression I'm getting? It was an 18-hole golf course and a clubhouse?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When that course was built, at what point in this, I was not involved in the city to really kind of know what's going on, but at what point during the authorization to borrow, because we borrowed money to build the golf course, correct?
Correct. So the city council at that time issued the authorization for about $5.9 million in order to construct the golf course.
Okay. And that
was interesting because the golf course took about $8.5 million to build.
And as a part of that debt issuance, is that when the venue tax was presented to the citizens?
No.
When did that occur?
So the
2002.
Yeah, I understand. I wanted to say, so when the analysis was originally done for the golf course, they believed that the revenue from the rounds would be sufficient to cover the operations and the debt service. So when Don Taylor came in around 2002, 2003, at that time, again, my words, and I'm sorry if any of you were involved that, the financial status of the golf course had been pretty much swept under the rug, and I'm going to tell you the pile was about that high. And so they quickly figured out, after a couple of years of operating, so they started construction in '98 and they opened up in 2000. They realized that the golf course revenue was not going to cover operations and was not going to cover the debt service. So that was when they went back to the voters and asked for the approval to add on an additional one half of 1% on the sales tax, which is called a venue tax because it's a venue, for the maintenance and operation and financing of the golf course, which the voters did approve. And then those funds have been used primarily to pay debt service over the last 20 years, 20-some years, because they did refinance that at one time, so it got extended out a few more years. And it was being used to cover any shortfall in the operations.
Remind me.
Well, let me just add one thing quickly here.
Yes, Mayor.
Accent this, Kim, is that the original decision to build the golf course was also approved by the voters.
Yes, sir.
I think you need to understand that. That was the voter, it was actually one time, the first time it was turned down, it was not voted out, and then it came on the ballot again, and the citizens voted to approve the construction of the golf course.
And I would also add that one of the reasons for the golf course was that the land for the golf course was donated to the city. So we didn't pay for land. We paid for a little bit of land, but the majority of the land was given to us. And it was given by the developer who has built all 21 subdivisions around the golf course because they felt, and obviously the city council and the voters did at that time, that the golf course would be a benefit to bringing in new homes and much bigger homes, and that typically homes around golf courses have a higher value. And so it was anticipated that the golf course would make those subdivisions happen, which it did. We have 21. They only had planned for, I think it was 19 or 20, and then they figured out how to get a few more in. So that was the other half of it too. It was how to grow and expand Universal City, add in a venue, build new subdivisions, increase the tax base for the city.
And I'm going to jump out of order on my questions, but there was and my memory does not serve me very well on this one, but at one point did we not have a flood event down there that damaged a portion of the golf course that we had to borrow money to fix?
Yes, so the Olympia Hills Golf Course and Conference Center is like many golf courses, Land Park and others. They're built in floodplains because you can't put a residential structure in there. And so, yes, I think it was in 2000, what year did we have the big rain, 2008?
We had the big one was in 2000, Don Taylor, the first one was Don Taylor in 2002.
So we had the first one in 2002 and the second one in 2008, and it did wipe out sections of the golf course, which we had to go back in and rebuild, right? We'd already made the investment. And so we have elevated 6 and 7. We're working on 8 and 9. 8 and 9 we're doing now. I'm looking at Sal because I get them mixed up, is the one that we're doing now. And so with that, right, the bunkers had to be replaced, the irrigation had to be done, a lot of work, the channels, because remember there's like 2 or 3 creeks that go through that golf course. It's part of the beauty of it, but it's also the nature of, Mother Nature. And so we've done that to reduce the liability. Somebody had said earlier, I apologize, I don't remember, that now that the debt is paid off on the golf course, and I'd say we have to be very careful of saying that because we have not made our last debt payment yet. The golf course is not paid off. It will be paid off in 2023, and that's about $500,000. At the same time, remember, we're reducing our liability on the golf course, and we are now working on hole 8 and 9. When we first started on that, the probable estimated cost was about $600,000 to $650,000. And now with all the cost escalations, that's $900,000. That's not being paid from the general fund. It's not being paid with property taxes. It's being paid with the ad valorem. So all the revenue that is identified for the golf course for this fiscal year 2023 has already been line item for something else. So we can't say that we paid it off, and we can't say that the work on it is done because there is work that needs to be done.
In what year did we decide to grow into more of an event center, to add an event center to the complex?
So it started early on when we had Kemper Golf, is that what they were called? Kemper Golf. And they were primarily, it was the third-party contractor that the city had hired that was going to operate the golf course for us because we didn't have the wherewithal to do it. And so they did some events, but again, not dipping men in there. They were all men and they were all golfers. They had no desire to sell weddings and bring in that kind of revenue. And quite frankly, it wasn't until we brought in Katie. What year did you start?
It'll be 10 years in February.
So it's been 10 years that we've been working on building up our wedding and event section. And really until Katie just came, the general manager of the golf, which was Sal and Jason and Mike and then Kemper. If I've left somebody out, Sal will let me know. It's always been operated by a man, and quite frankly, they're not very good at selling weddings to brides and, you know, painting the picture and drawing on the emotion. So really, it's only been in the last 10 years that we've been able to build up the wedding and the event.
How much revenue have we, generally?
I was going to say, I can kind of talk about this.
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
This is what I get excited about. So it'll be 10 years in February, at the end of February, that I've been there. So I was looking back on some financials, and I started, so back in 2013, I think the revenue that we brought in was $80,000 for events. So weddings, quinceañeras, birthday parties, $80,000. That first year, the next year, I brought in $175,000. So we went from $80,000, and that had been pretty consistent. I think back in 2006, which I have the information on, it was $66,000 in event revenue, only event revenue. And so then that first jump, I'm really excited about weddings. I love weddings, and so I'm really passionate about excelling in that. And so we had a huge jump from $80,000 to $174,000 in revenue for that. Last year, we did $355,000 in revenue for weddings.
And so at this point, what's keeping you from making more revenue is a lack of space and a lack of facilities and a lack of parking.
A little bit of everything that Kim touched on. So I'm an extremely competitive person. I want to know what our weaknesses is and everything. So I bring in very, very high-end wedding professionals. We have visioning sessions, and I would say, okay, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. Let me know what I can do. Why am I not selling out every single Saturday? What can we do? And so there was pretty consensus about there's a few things that we can do to strive. We had an open house last Thursday. I had brides come in. I talked to them. They said, okay, like, we love you. We love your food. We don't love your venue. Can you come and can I pay you to be my wedding coordinator at a different facility? Can I pay Taylor and your catering staff to outside cater? And I was like, unfortunately, like, we just can't do that. But I could go on and on about the amount of times that I get asked that question. A lot of it has to do with the intimacy of being in a wedding, and there is a large saturation of venues in the San Antonio area. And a lot of those venues are built by themselves, not golf courses. So then the bride feels special. They have their entire facility for that day. So that's one of the things, if we could separate the ceremony site to be a little bit more private, that's a big thing. Bridal suite, they love that experience, a larger bridal suite. We do have an area, it's like a 12 by 12, like my old office that we converted into an area because they didn't have anywhere. So definitely if we could make the ceremony site more private, having a bridal suite and doing some upgrades like the flooring and things, I think that I could absolutely maximize out weddings there. I really feel like that.
And I just have one question to wrap up. In general, I mean, we don't want to have to borrow more money to do anything at the golf course. And with the venue tax in place, we would potentially not have to borrow money to make capital improvements. And I'm assuming that's the goal you're trying to accomplish by
Well, that's obviously an
maintain this.
option, but that's a discussion for the council, whether you want to do improvements and you want to cash flow them, or you want to do improvements and you want to do revenue bonds to pay for them over time. That's ultimately the discussion, right?
Right, but I mean, with the venue tax, it's spread over all of the sales tax spenders, all of the people that spend money in the city and pay sales tax on
Right.
that spending.
So one of the ways that you think of the golf course, and maybe people don't think of it like this, I think of it this way, it's our tourist attraction, right? Selma has the horse racing place, Live Oak has their convention center, and, you know, San Antonio's got a myriad of them, the Alamo, the rodeo, whatever. The golf course and conference center is our tourist attraction. Somebody asked how many Universal City residents go there. And there are a lot. I mean, I see golfers from the city and I see people attending events from the city. But the benefit of it is that a lot of the revenue that is generated through the venue tax is through people who don't live in the city. And that's what tourism is all about. It's bringing money that is from outside the city and bringing it into the inside of the city. If it was only used by Universal City residents, it's just a circular distribution of the same dollar. The goal is always to bring dollars from the outside and bring it inside. That's how you create wealth.
Right, and I think that's where I'm kind of going with this. I just want to ask the question of if we switch to supporting the golf course with the general fund or any other type fund, and we start borrowing money on it again, that potentially goes against our M&O or our INS number, which gets spread over anybody that pays property tax at that point. So we're shifting the money away from the sales tax and more into the property tax realm.
There's that potential, right? So yes, we have a revenue stream right now, which is brought about by residents who shop and eat and do everything else and use the golf course and other amenities that we have in the city. But there's also revenue, a lot that comes from outside. That is not a burden on the property tax players, right? The ad valorem. So like we've had to do in the past, unfortunately, when there was a shortfall in funds to cover the debt and any operational shortfalls, it fell to the general fund to carry that up. Is there a potential that you could move the funding away from the golf course too quickly and get back into the same situation where now you have to depend on the general fund to make up the loss? That's always there, but we would have to do careful and prudent planning to make sure that we don't put the burden of the golf course back on the property taxpayers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anyone see that this will ever be self-sustaining?
And we can't discuss it now, we can just talk to you offline with it afterwards, but right now it's discussion between us and staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for agreeing to discuss this. There's been a lot of discussion about the golf course, but in my mind, this is not about the golf course. This is about how we want to structure our revenue. And so we have sales tax that we decided to dedicate to the golf course that we don't have to dedicate to the golf course. And so if you were asked the question, do we want a sales tax that is restricted to one purpose, or do we want a sales tax that's more open for the city to use however they want, whether that may be the golf course or not be the golf course? But right now we have no choice. It's all going to the golf course. And so the question is what is the alternative? So there's two main options that I would look at. One is the general sales tax. And so you're lucky to have handouts. Sorry, Buck, I couldn't get one to you. On the first page is just some of the sales tax rates that are our neighboring cities, and there's 30 on there. There's 3 in particular that are interesting to me. That's Leon Valley, St. Hedwig, and Vaughan. All of them have a sales tax rate above the 1%. So in theory, if we converted the venue tax into a base sales tax, it could be used for any lawful purpose, including the golf course. If that's not available or feasible for some reason, for some legal reason I don't know, there's also the street maintenance sales tax that's been brought up tonight. The street maintenance sales tax can be used for street debt, so it can be used to pay our bonds that the voters have approved. It can also prevent the debt entirely, in theory. That's on page 2. So page 2 shows you, these are not my numbers, these are the city's projections that are in the agenda packet. But over the next 13 years, the venue tax is going to generate $29.9 million. And the city has asked for $30 million over that same time frame for street bonds. So if we're willing to be patient a couple years for the venue tax to build up, it could replace the street bonds. Or we could take that street maintenance sales tax, use it for debt service, and leverage it to get even more debt. So you could take maybe $100 million in bonds and use that venue tax to cover the annual debt service on it. That's the power of the street maintenance. But the street maintenance also is important to note that there's been some comments that it's not taxpayer money, but it really is, because streets are typically paid for by property taxes. So anything that would help pay for streets helps the property taxpayers. So because we've taken this money off the top and we've stuck it in the golf course, it's no longer available to fund what taxpayers have to pay for. So if we bring it back in, then we all would have a decision on what do we want to do with this money instead of being forced to give it to the golf course. Just because we do remove the venue tax doesn't mean that we're not going to support the golf course, and I support the golf course. I share Mr. Edwards' comments that it would be very sad to see it go, so I have no interest in that happening. But why would we want a restricted revenue again instead of an unrestricted revenue? We've got options. The only reason not to do that in my mind is because someone is concerned about the golf course not getting the funding that they think it needs. So we need data to know whether or not the golf course needs money, and that's page 3 of my handout. And so the city has some needs. They've done a good job putting some capital needs together. They didn't really have any totals, so I did my best to total it over the next 10 years on top. And that's about $9.2 million over the next 10 years. So the question is, where does that money come from? We could have a discussion about do we want to spend the $9.2 million on the golf course, but that's not really for tonight. My focus tonight is on what should our revenue structure be. But let's just assume we did want to spend the $9.2 million over the next 10 years. The golf course really has a much better operation than it has in the past. If you look at the 2023 budget on the left-hand bottom side, the operating income in bold, it's generating about $450,000 in surplus in 2023. So the operating revenues are covering the operating costs, and it's putting some money in reserves. Then you add the sales tax on top, so that's not counting the venue tax that it gets supported by. So if you look at that and you project out based on what the money it already has and what the venue tax is going to bring in based on the city's estimates, not my estimates, that's the bottom right-hand side. So that gives you 3 scenarios. One is keeping the venue tax over the next 10 years. That would allow the city to pay for the $9.2 million that they've asked on their needs and would give the golf course an additional $18 million. So that's $27 million over the next 10 years that would go to the golf course when the city has said they only need 9.2 on their projection. So doing nothing really isn't an option because it locks us into all this money in the golf course that we can't do anything else with. There's been also some discussion about reducing the venue tax. That's the middle column, which would be reducing it to 1/8 of 1% instead of 0.5%. If we do that, that still allows the city to pay for the $9.2 million and still gives the golf course $3.8 million on top of that. If we end the venue tax over the next 10 years, because the venue tax would be a November election, according to our city manager, and then nothing would change until April 1st of 2024. So that's about over another year of venue tax that it would collect. So over that time frame, and then assuming that it can continue to generate $450,000 a year in surplus as it is, over that 10-year time frame, it would be $521,000 short of the $9.2 million. So it would still have $8.7 million available for capital needs. And if we put this in front of the voters and they approved it, I'd be in favor of just cutting a check with $521,000 to the golf fund out of the general fund and calling it good. But I hope that it's clear that we're talking about how do we want our revenue, not do we want to support the golf course. And I think that supporting the golf course should be a discussion as part of the budget, should compete for funding with everything else, because as Mrs. Hughes says, it's a little bit more of a want than a need. And so I don't think it should get first crack at our tax dollars. It should be a discussion with all of our other items in terms of what it gets. So also, this is how Councilmember Goolsby gets his CID officer. This is how Shelby gets your extra firefighter. So I'm asking my council members to join me in directing the staff to bring an ordinance calling for an election to a future agenda item to convert the venue tax into a general sales tax. If that's not feasible for some reason, then we would convert it into a street maintenance tax. One final comment is there was some discussion about being concerned about if we take the venue tax away, the golf course might have to borrow money. But by giving it this money, we're having to borrow money for streets. So either way, we're borrowing money, and it just depends on what we want to borrow it for. So, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I don't even know where to begin. As far as the city's concerned, I disagree that this is a want more than a need. Real quickly, other than the brand new hotel that we just put on the side of 35 of the golf course, and we're talking about what type of land it is, can anything, if we didn't have a golf course, what else could be built out there?
Well, it's primarily in the floodplain, so not much.
if
It can be
anything?
used as a park, right? We have parks that are in the floodplain as well. But you still have all the maintenance and operation for maintaining the grass and, you know, keeping the snakes and the bugs out. But yeah, you are right, we do have an obligation to the hotel. We have a symbiotic relationship with them right now. And so we do have that responsibility as well.
Yeah, that'd be kind of a hard conversation going up to the hotel and saying, thank you so much for bringing your hotel out here on our golf course. But we decided we're not going to have a golf course, but thank you for playing.
And I can say, not to interrupt you, I apologize.
That's fine.
But when we have been meeting with the hotel operators, they have kindly given us lists of items that they would like us to fix because they feel that their hotel clients deserve a nicer looking facility. Slightly embarrassing, but yes, they have done that on several occasions.
Just going to that, you know, I think, and I've said this many times with that, we've got venue tax that has been brought up. We did, Mr. Rubel brings up that, you know, we're not making money, we haven't made money, it's not going to make money. When we had an outside management team, we didn't make any money. We brought up, thank God for the staff that we have now, and thinking outside the box. We've been bringing that up, and now we're getting to the point, that should be over, what, we'd say $1 million, $500,000, left somewhere in there, just about done with that, correct? With the money that's being generated by the venue tax, again, those are people that spend their tax dollars, that come through our city and spend their tax dollars. Well, we need a destination spot, and I think people have a tendency to, are zeroing in on the fact that it's the golf course. No, it's a golf course. It's a, am I get it right? Convention center, event center. Let me not mess that up. And as far as golfing is concerned, mathematically wise, if you have a perfect day, I mean, there's a finite number. That sun rises and you open your eyes at the time and the sun sets. There's a finite number of golf rounds you can get. There's a pretty, I would think, pretty simple way of figuring out how much money can be made off the golf course itself. But the venues surrounding the golf course, nobody's going to want a wedding if you don't have a golf course out there. Not if you don't have a beautiful golf course. I think it's short-sighted. And down the road, the people that have bought homes around the golf course, Olympia Hills area, a lot of we've always said, like Live Oak. Live Oak has the tax base, and we have the property values. I know people get mad when they say, "Oh my gosh, my home taxes, you know, are very high." Your home taxes are very high here in Universal City because property is worth a lot in Universal City, and a lot of that. I'm sorry, do I need to stop? No.
You keep talking, I'm going to go touch the screen.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Wright, Mr. Back online here.
To me,
I can still hear everybody.
Okay, great. You know, just like I said with the hotel, that has the potential. We're raising this up. We're getting in the black now. Okay, to take that venue tax away and put it towards something else is putting us in a position where if we had another snowvid or COVID or some type of weather event or whatever comes up and kills the golf course, we don't get that back. And this is going to be a real popular statement. I'm kidding about that being popular. At this stage, being able to support more activities at that area on the venue, it's a crime that if we have a wedding, we can't have a golf event. If we have a golf event, we can't have a wedding. People running into, I've seen the kitchen area there before. I know that needs money to be brought up to par. I'm in the area that you need to spend some money to make money. And our golf course and facility, conference center can do so much more if given the right if given the right money to do that. But the building now needs major attention, first off. But we need to think outside the box. It's not, I mean, the golf course would be secondary to a very nice destination venue for Universal City. We're already looking at putting, at upgrading our downtown area with our site for the future. I mean, we have a plan for that. Bring this to a destination area, it starts making money. Even if the golf course itself is not making money, this will be. But without the golf course, I mean, I'm all for building another facility right on the side. This has been brought up before. The old board had brought up an idea about, and I used to be a golfer a long time ago. Now I just look at the golf ball and I don't swing at it because I really can't hit anything anymore. So, can somebody tell me, is there 2 putting greens?
To practice putting greens, yes.
Yeah, the one that's by the parking lot there. I don't see it getting used too frequently. Is that the main one, or?
It's not, it's a secondary.
I feel bad for not knowing that, but I haven't gone down there and done a lot of putting. But if anybody in this room, well, there's a few people who have, but if anybody else has not walked onto that putting green and just looked over the side and saw what I feel is a beautiful $1 million view right there, where a facility, thinking outside the box, I'm just one idea of putting a facility out there where you could see that and being able to run 1, 2, maybe 3 events a day. That's when you start making the money. We're limiting ourselves now the way it is. And I think the future, and not take the venue tax away and take your foot off the gas. Now that it's starting to get into black, I think it's major time that we put our foot on the gas for the future of Universal City. And to me, whatever you feel about later or before when we traded the land for what we don't have now in the Forum, but we have it now, we need to make it work. And thinking outside the box. And it's not, maybe I'm speaking wrong, I don't believe it's the council's responsibility as far as figuring out the dollars and cents. If the council's responsibility is to give direction to our city staff in what we want, what we feel the citizens have brought to us, how we want the direction of this city to go. And as far as marketing and being able to bring them up, and that's where they come in. But I think, make a long story short, which, sorry, I can never do, it would be just, we're not looking towards the future enough. It's very short-sighted, and I would be against that myself. Again, I think we need to put more money in that facility and make it the A1 venue it can be. It's a beautiful area, and we can bring people in. A stakeout, there's plenty of room to make some more parking area out there. I know there's a beautiful fence out there that kind of hides the garbage cans and everything, but there's all kinds of things. I'm not into construction, or I'm not an architect, but I'll leave that to the professionals. But I believe we need to do more on making it the A1 facility and making it a destination spot for Universal City. That's all I have to think, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, let me interject just a little bit here. I think the discussion is, it's not that people don't want the golf course, they're wanting to look about the way it's funded.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the issues that you guys need to be concerned about. And I can just say that it is, as Kim brought up, it is a tourist type destination. And what that means simply is that people come, just like people that spend money here in restaurants and other places, they're not all from Universal City. They're from everywhere. And being a golfer, and the staff can tell you this, that the actual membership, if you want to call it membership, of Universal City residents for the course is not that dramatic. It's not that high. Yet the playing group has been phenomenally increasing over the years. And what that does is it brings a reputation to our city as people come through to play or to come to play with whether it be weddings, receptions, whatever they are. That is a huge attraction for us. And so it's kind of like a hidden value. And so what I'll tell you is that I think the decision that was made to use this percentage of the venue tax to help finance the golf course was a brilliant decision and a visionary decision that was made by this council many years ago. Because it's enabled us to build on what we have. Do we have what we need? No. Do we need more? Absolutely. We need to find a way to help divide up the decisions on the wedding and receptions and on the golf, and so that they don't blast against each other all the time. We have a facility that was built, as Kim said, for other purposes rather than to have weddings. And things have really dramatically changed, and that's been a tremendous revenue generator for us in our community. At the same time, we have a course that has picked up a lot of golfers, because we have lost in the San Antonio area 5 courses in the last 5 years. At least 5. I can name them all to you if you want to hear.
Are they public or private courses?
The only one that was, actually none of them were private, except for the Palmer course. The others have all been either public or private, but open to the public. And then there were some classic golf courses too, the Con Valley and the Republic, phenomenal golf courses. And so this city has been able to provide that venue that other cities have not been able to do. And we should be darn proud of what we have and the facility that we have. We just have to figure out a way to make sure that the finances are done right. And that's what we're looking at tonight. That's what we're discussing. We're not discussing, let's get away with the golf course, let's do that. What do we want to do with this money? And the citizens did approve it. And so what we have to look at is, where are we going to go from here? What is our next step? Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up for everybody, and we'll keep the discussion going.
2 people with hands up.
Let's see. Let's go to Mr. Buck. Let's have our outsider come in. Come on, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Katie and her amazing staff for the awards that she was recognized for in the Knot and the Wedding Wire 2022 Event Locations of the Year. So, Katie, congratulations to you and your entire staff.
Thank you.
And we will also add in that they were also the 2021 Event Destination of the Year. So we actually won it 2 years in a row.
So, Katie, that makes you a repeat offender, I suppose.
Thank you.
I have some of my notes down here, so please forgive me for not looking directly at everybody. If I could, you said during the opening statements that because of our lack of shelter for many of the carts, we are limited to 75 carts. Do we have an estimate of how many additional rounds of golf we could host, assuming that we had unlimited amount of storage for carts? How many additional carts would we want to have, and how many additional rounds of golf would that support, or how many additional tournaments or additional players? Do you have any data to support how much additional revenue that could bring in if we had unlimited cart storage and unlimited number of rounds of golf?
Sally, you want to address that?
So
Go to the
based,
microphone. Yeah, thank you.
so based on our last three-year average, with additional 10 golf carts, we could average 40 rounds extra a weekend. So I'm only speaking of just the weekends, because that's when we sell out the most. So by that standard, we're looking around 35,000 rounds a year. But the second part of that is that we are losing some golfers because they're having to wait around for carts to come in. So that retention value for golfers is important in my mind. So I'm guessing we could look at about 5,000 rounds a year, upwards to $150,000 extra a year.
With 10 carts.
With 10 carts extra.
10 carts extra would result in about $150,000 extra revenue per year to the golf course, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. What has been the trend of rounds of golf played over the years? With the golf courses that have closed around the greater San Antonio area that the mayor referenced, what have you seen has been either an increase or a decrease in the number of rounds played?
Well, since 2018, we've, I believe it was 28,000 rounds in 2018. Last year we had 43,000 rounds. So it's definitely been an increase.
Close to double, I would say.
Close, yes.
And I might add that there's a lot of factors playing into that. So, you know, golf is like most sports. It's cyclical. It has its highs and its lows. When you have a super basketball player, all of a sudden you have people who don't normally watch basketball watching basketball or going to basketball games. Golf is the same way. When we had Tiger Woods, oh my gosh, we could sell golf any day and all day. So we're starting to see a resurgence of golf again, and that is because of the overall interest in golf picking up nationwide. We know that from the magazines that we get, and especially in Texas. And the other thing that Mayor mentioned, the other courses that closed, and a lot of them have closed, of course, for different reasons. But the other thing that was of a benefit to us, besides those courses closing, when we had those 2 years of COVID, and you had the governor and the county judge issuing who could be open and who couldn't be open, and none of us knew who to believe or who to follow. There was a provision in both of theirs that said this did not apply to public facilities. So when the county judge came out and said, oh, all the golf courses in Bexar County need to close down, the mayor and I contacted the judge and said, look, Olympia Hills is a public facility. It is owned and operated by the city of Universal City. We're taking our public exclusion. And so all of a sudden you had tons of golfers with nowhere to go except Universal City. And so what that did for us is it brought out people who had never been to us before, never experienced the service, the food, the beverage, the course, any of that. And all of a sudden, this is a new venue for them. And a lot of them, and Sal and his staff, they've all worked on this. We've made them repeat customers. And so that's part of the reason also why we have this resurgence in rounds. So the rounds that we did last year, we haven't done that number of rounds since 2001. I think the first year we opened, we had 40,000. The second year we had 42,000. And then it was downhill and uphill, downhill and uphill, downhill. And now we're on the uphill again. This is a lot of factors that play into it.
Clearly a benefit for the Olympia Hills Golf and Event Center. Have we maintained those numbers now that we are, dare I say, post-COVID?
Yes, sir. We've increased every year since.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, you said that 5 courses around the greater San Antonio area have closed. I don't know that private versus public would be a good comparison for our purposes to compare apples to apples. How about publicly accessible? I swear I had my phone on silent, sorry. How about publicly accessible versus private, not open to the public?
Well, every one of those courses except for...
Because there are public golf courses that are privately owned as opposed to a municipal course that is open to the public, if you understand my differentiation.
Well, the municipal courses are the ones that are in San Antonio, and those are all open. The others were courses like the Republic, Pecan Valley, Wood Lake was a course that everybody played. North Cliff was another one right up the road here, obviously. And we have the reason that they closed, they're all different, multiple reasons. And I can't give you any one definitive answer as to why. Most of it was economics.
So they were privately owned but open to the public.
Privately owned but open.
All the municipal courses are still open.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing part of that is because every city that has one has a venue tax or some means of funding the golf courses.
Yes, there's a lot of creative funding opportunities that the city of San Antonio uses as well for its municipal courses that it owns and operates.
So the municipal courses all benefited from COVID in a way?
Well, San Antonio
probably say that's true.
Yeah, San Antonio didn't keep their municipal courses open. They followed the judge's rule and didn't take the public exclusion like we did. And so San Antonio closed all their courses down. I don't know how many they have, Sal? They have 8 public courses and they closed all of them down. So people had nowhere to go except Olympia Hills and Universal City. And we had people coming from Austin to golf.
In closing for my comments on this topic, Mr. Mayor, I understood that this tab agenda item was going to be a discussion of the revenue tax and not necessarily whether or not it makes sense to reallocate any of the venue tax to other facilities or to reallocate that 0.5% sales tax. Having said that, I did campaign on the position that I believe that the golf course and the event center should be self-supporting. I support the golf course, I support the event center. Having said that, I did not intend that it would be immediately cut off, that as soon as the funding that originated the golf course, the bonds that were issued, that, okay, we've now paid it off, now we're going to cut off the golf course from its source of funding. As I reviewed the spreadsheet that was presented by the staff, and thank you very much for putting all of that together, I noticed there are a lot of deferred maintenance items on that list, many of which have not been fixed or updated since the golf course was created 22 years ago. So while I do support the golf course and the event center long-term being self-sufficient, I don't know that right now is the time to cut them off from the funding, given that we don't have any empirical data of how they will continue to operate after the bonds have been paid off. So I'm not sure that right now is the best time for that discussion of reallocation of the venue tax, although long-term I am open to that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I agree. This discussion this evening is to bring a lot of these issues out into the open so that we can all really examine them very carefully. I appreciate what Mr. Vaughan has done, because that's a step in the right direction. How are we going to finalize it all in the future? Gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd be able to tell you that, but I don't. But I believe we have a hidden jewel here, and how the financing comes out in the future, that's something that we need to look at. Right now, the venue tax has been really invaluable in helping us do the kinds of things, us meaning the city, doing the kinds of things that when it was under private management, when it was under management by Kemper, which was a great golf company, specializing in resort type activity like Troon Golf is. We thought that was a way we could probably fix some of the problem. It didn't fix the problem, it just cost us more money. And so the city made that decision. And this council and the city made the decision that we were going to take over responsibility for running that golf course without a lot of great golf knowledge, except for the team that was at the course. And we really worked hard to try to make this all happen. And so I appreciate your comments, Mr. Buck, and I think we all agree that what's before us is not that we want to get rid of the golf course, but we want to find ways to help finance it in a way that we can get things done. And right now, we have some serious needs to be able to increase the participation in the event side and the golf side dramatically. The golf side's increased really well. The event side could go way up here if it had more capabilities. And that's what Ms. Turner brought up in the fact that when you have a dining room that makes burgers and hot dogs, and then now you've got catering, that's a huge story, a huge difference. So I'll get off my little soapbox and turn it over to Mr. Goolsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Awesome spreadsheet. Thank you for totaling everything up for me and putting it down there. What I'm seeing is that you've got the 3 columns. It says ending the venue tax, which over 10 years puts them $500,000 under budget or over budget, and then reducing the venue tax seems to be just like right in the middle, or keeping it the same, which puts them at that $27 million over the next 10 years. So am I thinking? Okay. So I do appreciate the golf course, everything it brings to us. There's a lot of activities that happen. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of bringing people into Universal City to see what we have to offer here. I had not, Katie kind of surprised me tonight with the whole idea of why her venue has not just skyrocketed, because I know that they're amazing at what they do, and that's due to the facilities. I would like to continue this discussion about this venue tax. I don't think
that we have enough information right now to make any type of decision in the next couple of weeks. I think we need to look at what would it take to give Katie what would make this a massive destination versus what would it take to put all this, to take the venue tax and put it towards something else. I would really like to see what their needs are with those costs compared to what we can do by removing some of this venue tax. That one threw me for a loop, so I knew where I was headed tonight until she said that, and now I just don't even know what I'm going to say. But I think it's a great discussion, and I don't want to see it die here tonight. I want to see it continue on with more information coming to us, and that's all Katie's fault. So
No,
because I knew where I was headed earlier until you said that, and then I just can't stop seeing where it could go. But there are a lot of possibilities. I think we just need to continue this conversation,
right?
Especially with the data that we're
right. And I thank again Phil for bringing this up because it's an issue that isn't going to be solved overnight. And I really appreciate everybody's comments on this, including our members of the audience this evening as well. And I think Mr. Shelby, you had another.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to wrap up since I had a bunch of questions. So really small. Let's see, Katie, when did you start?
2013, February.
Okay.
Almost 10 years.
So I got on city council in 2015. And I sat in here in 2014 for a year listening to the budget and the quarterly, monthly expenditures. And so I'm going to bring up an unpopular opinion that when I got on council, I wanted the golf course to go away. I looked at the amount of money that was going away every month in the golf course. And I talked to a lot of citizens when I ran, and I thought, my God, that is a lot of money every month. And yes, it would slow down, it would pick up, and we'd get busier during the summer, and it looked great for a good 3 or 4 months, and then it would just trickle back down, and I kept thinking, why are we supporting this? Now, I was a brand new city councilman. I had no idea how any of this stuff worked, other than sitting out in the audience, and I guarantee you, sitting in the audience doesn't teach you maybe about 30% of what is actually going on up here. And year after year, I saw that number start getting lower and how much we were losing. Now, I also had learned more about the venue tax and how the venue tax was being used to support and maintain the debt service and why it was implemented, and that the citizens made the decision to do it. Yes, the council put forth the resolution to put it on the ballot, but the citizens voted for it. And that kind of leads me into where I'm going with this statement is, the council just needs to look at this as maybe it's time to let them make a decision, see if they want to keep doing it or not. Honestly, it's not our decision. We didn't put it in place. I definitely wasn't here to put the resolution in place the first time. But if the citizens as a whole want to maintain the venue tax the way it is, they can do that in the ballot box. It really just comes down to whether we as a body want to put a resolution to have that placed on the ballot. And then if the citizens decide, no, we don't want to do that anymore. Yes, we decided to do it, what, 20 years ago? Making that number wrong? 2002?
They originally, I believe, in 1997 or 1998, so whatever it is.
Okay, so
that was for the golf course, but for the venue
Yes.
tax, that was
The venue tax, yeah, that was in 2002.
thank you. So what we've never done in the last 20 years, and we haven't been able to because of the debt service on the golf course, is check back with the citizens and see if that's still what they want. As you mentioned, we built 21 neighborhoods, 21, around the golf course. I'm pretty sure they probably have some input on that as well. I'm sure they're gonna want their voices heard. They may not be here tonight to have spoken. But, yes, when it comes down to it, it's a citizen decision. And do I want the golf course to go away anymore? No, I don't. I've played it a couple times. I played it when it first opened. I bring business to the golf course when I have clients that need to, I need to take them out. I like to bring them out here. I've gone to events in the event center. I think it's done an incredible job of improving what it is as a facility within the confines that it's been squeezed into. Because it absolutely has been squeezed into a tiny little box. And could we and should we build on that and make it, put it in a situation where it can be more than it is, where it can support itself more than it is able to? I think it's a great idea. But when it comes down to it, as it's been brought up, this is a conversation about the venue tax and whether or not we should be putting it back in front of the citizens to ask them what to do with it. If they want to decide not to continue to support the venue tax for the golf course, then that goes, however it gets shifted back, either it goes to street maintenance fund or it goes to the tax base, then the council then goes, okay, we don't have that money for the golf course anymore. Now we're going to have to cover this stuff this way. It's not, the golf course is not going to go away. I don't see it going away. I see as long as we continue to think about the golf course as a gym, and sometimes you have to take a gym in and polish it. Sometimes it's got to get taken out of the setting and cleaned up. Sometimes you want a different ring to put the gym on. When you think about that, we're going to do our best anyways. Or I would hope that any council in the future would continue to do the best that they can to maintain a facility that has been a point of controversy for many, many years. There's people that think that it's a private golf course for Olympia, and Olympia, if you live in Olympia, it's your golf course. I don't live in Olympia. I know it's not an Olympia golf course. It's named after Olympia, but that's the misconception. There is a misconception over where the money comes from. Yes, we've discovered where we've, in the past, had to use general funds to support it. And I remember even having this conversation that the goal was that the golf course was eventually going to pay that money back at some point.
We are paying it back.
So that money is coming back. But I started off my conversation from a pragmatic standpoint of what is the golf course, what is the history behind the golf course, and what do we benefit out of having the golf course, right? What risks do we have by keeping the golf course with something like a flood, where we may have to be in a situation where we have to rebuild a portion of the golf course, which is going to cost a lot of money. But on the other side of it too, we're really just talking about, are the funds dedicated to the golf course? Or are they a part of the city funds? I mean, get rid of all the other noise about what the money can be used for. That's really what this conversation is. Do we want to maintain, do we want to, as a body, put it in front of citizens again and ask them, and should we, and I'll close with this, my kind of thought process is, should we be doing that? If they decide to keep it, should we check back with them in 5 years, 10 years? Should we just, hey, we need to check in. We don't need this money to pay the debt anymore, because that was the main reason. It was to support it because it was going to go down in flames and it had all this debt on it. Now we need it to expand it, to bring it up to date, to make it a better facility. And that way the money comes out of money that's dedicated to it, or we have to go somewhere else for it if it's no longer. So that's my thought on that. Thank you so much.
Mayor, I wonder if I might make a clarification. So, as always, I appreciate Mr. Vaughn's ability to put all of these numbers together. I mean, it's a marvel. One thing I did want to point out, I know you said it was 9.8, but I hope to make it obvious to everybody, because it's on the bottom of each page, that says replacement costs are estimates only. That is us just saying, what do you think that's going to be? I don't know. Last time we did a parking lot 2 years ago, it was 25, maybe it's 30,000 this time. So none of this can be done without bids and actual quotes. So while we gave what he brought up would to be about 9.8 million, I can't say that's a correct number. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that we were guessing at those numbers and not to hold us to that. Because we know that there is a process that has to go through and that we have to comport with the city's purchasing policy, and none of that was factored into this. The other thing that I wanted to bring out was the fact that I think it was Mr. Vaughan who mentioned that the golf course is an enterprise fund, and the purpose of an enterprise fund is that it has to pay for itself, and that is correct. The unusual thing, again, I didn't set it up this way, I don't know who did, golf courses don't have to be enterprise funds. In fact, in most cities, they're not set up to be enterprise funds. We don't even have to keep it as an enterprise fund. We can redo our budget, reclassify it, make it into a Parks and Recs type facility, and put it in the parks budget, and still use some of the venue tax to pay for it. So it doesn't have to be an enterprise. In talking with Victor Quiroga, who most of you know is our financial advisor, his recommendation is that he's never seen a golf course that was set up as an enterprise fund, and he doesn't know why it was done in Universal City. So I just want to bring that up. It doesn't have to be an enterprise fund. Somewhere along the way, when they were doing the budget and whatever, they set it up as an enterprise fund. The other thing that I wanted to throw out is that, thank you for your discussion, because every one of you are correct, right? Do we need to keep the golf course? Absolutely. Do we, like every other facility, whether it's public works, animal shelter, library, police station, fire station, they all have to be properly maintained and outfitted to do the job that they're required to do. And the golf course should not be thought any differently than that. You know, if you took every department in the city and you said, look, you only get to operate on the revenue that you provide, we wouldn't have a library because the library doesn't cover any of its expenses. We wouldn't have an animal shelter because they don't cover their expenses. We wouldn't have a police department, a fire department, a parks department, because none of them are revenue generating things. None of them cover their own expenses. So we kind of have to be careful about not trying to reclassify or to maybe do this, hold the golf course up to some other standard that we don't require of any other department, because it is a city operation and it functions as a municipal operation. They're city employees. They should be treated just like everybody else. And I also wanted to point out that Mr. Vaughan is correct, right? At some point we have to make the decision, do they really need all the money? I don't know if it's now, I don't know if it's 2 years from now, whatever y'all decide we're gonna do, right? But the other thing that you have to understand is there is more options with the venue tax than just operating a golf course. So I'm going to go back to Chapter 334 of the Local Government Code. This is what the golf course venue tax was authorized under, because not only can you take it to the voters and have a portion go somewhere else, but you can do the opposite. You can go back to the voters and say, look, we have this venue tax. Part of it's being used for the golf course. What other things could we add to it that would take away from the general fund, right? And so I'm going to talk about some of those things. So we talked about the convention center. Do we want another one? No, of course we don't. But you can do tourism development area. And I'm going to focus your attention on two projects that you know we're working on. One is the Aviation District Master Plan. It has within it a facility, a plaza, a downtown square, which we do not have, that is intended to have a stage and booths to attract tourists, to get other people into Universal City, out to the beer place, gather to the mobile food park, people walking and milling about. You can add that into the venue project by asking the voters if they would approve that. The other thing that you could ask the voters to do is, if we have the venue tax, you could shift the municipal parks and recreation system under the venue tax. Our parks has about, what, a $1.2 million budget annually, not including your grants.
Yeah, it's right.
1.2 million, right? You could take the venue tax, put the parks and rec system under it. They would be working and competing with the golf course for the dollars that they have, and take that portion out of the general fund And then you can use the general fund money for whatever you want. Street maintenance, bonds, issue more bonds, more police, whatever. So we have to remember that. And then I'm going to also focus your attention, and I apologize to the public because you don't know a lot about this project, but we know we're working on the UC station. And for those who were in the executive session, you know that there is a potential or a possibility for some kind of venue in that particular area as well, which of course the city would have to plan, construct, and operate, right? So you could add multiple things under the venue tax and multiple projects under the venue tax. You'd still have to go out and get voter approval, but you could be shifting some more burden away from the general fund and putting it wherever you want by taking that money and loosening it up in the general fund. So I just wanted to bring all of those items up. And then, sorry, I'm just going over my notes. And I did want to just make sure that we give credit where credit is due on the breaking even point that the golf course has had these last few years. So of no fault of their own, the golf course staff, who are your professionals, right? Katie's a professional golf pro. We got our ergonomic guy over there with Jeremy. Everybody knows what they're doing. They know their business. They were never given an opportunity to put their budget together. They never even saw their budget, which I think was a disservice to them as professionals and a disservice to the community. It was always just given to them, and they never got financials. They didn't know whether they were making money or losing money. They had no idea. They weren't given the opportunity. So in the last 3 years, when the golf course is either broke even or had excess revenue, it's because they have done their own budgets and they have cut their costs and they've figured out how to reduce overhead and all of that. So I just want to make sure that they get the credit for that because that is their effort and their hard work. And then the last thing I have, that I promise I'll be quiet for a while, is I did go back in and looked at what previous administrations and finance directors had been doing with the general fund as it relates to the golf course. So there was funds that was used from the general fund to make up additional shortfall or additional capital improvement projects that the venue tax couldn't cover because the funding was set up that balloon payments had to be made, right? So every dime that we had was going to debt service, but yet we still had repairs to make. And so the general fund was being used to that. At one point, a couple of years ago, 3 years maybe, it was about 2.4 million. But what we've been doing within the budgets that we've had for the last 3 years is we have been taking money from the golf course operations and we have been putting it back toward that debt that is in the general fund. So right now, at the end of 2022, I think it was about 1.9 million. And so we know in 2023, we've identified at least $160,000 that needs to go toward that. The other thing that you could do with that is, you know, we have, even though it's a venue tax, I work on it, Jessica works on it, Randy works on it, Michael works on it. We have a lot of non-golf course employees working on projects and things at the golf course. The city could just basically reimburse themselves for some of those people's work and put the money back in the general fund that way. I'm saying is it doesn't have to be as complicated as we're making it.
Okay. Great discussion. I'll let Mr. Vaughan have the last word.
Just real brief. I think one way to compromise would be to, why don't we put a bond on the ballot for the golf course if we could build a Darius right there on the practice green and put the venue tax on the same election and let the voters tell us whether they want us to expand that and make the golf course better and we can put a package together or it doesn't have to be a one or the other. But I guess the staff would want some direction from here. So what, like Mr. Goolsby said that he wanted more information, so what would that look like and what did they need to bring back so that we could make a decision? What's the next steps for them?
Okay, I think it's prudent for us to probably conclude the discussion this evening because the next step is going to be to continue on this process and how we want to go about that. Now, I would suggest that we continue the discussions, maybe not every council meeting, but maybe every 2 or 3, to have staff come back with some what we're looking for is, what is it gonna cost to get the golf course and the conference facility where we need it? And if we know, if we have a pretty good, and again, they're estimates, but if we have a pretty good estimate of what it's gonna cost us to expand our event center, to expand our golf capabilities, get more carts, get more tournaments, get more whatever, that's where we go. So if we leave this to staff now to say, come up with what you really believe are the key elements that you need, and how can we support that? And will it be by revenue tax? Will it be by some other ways? We don't know. At this point, let's just leave the discussion today. This has been very meaningful, very helpful. I think staff learned a lot from that, and I think you guys have got a good feel for how people are feeling about it. And I don't think anyone wants to lose the golf course. Okay, I think that's a given. I hope you all realize that nobody wants to lose that. We have to figure out the creative ways to be able to finance the needs that we all have to make our facility 100 times better than it is, and it's pretty damn good. Pardon my French. Pretty darn good right now. Okay, and I speak as many of you know. I'm a golfer, and I spend a lot of time out there. I talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of golfers out there, and they are just thrilled to be able to come to Universal City and play that course, or come and have functions there. And ask people who hold functions at the event center, and they will tell you that they get the best service you could ever have. And the golf tournaments that are held out there, they're the best team that takes care of it. So let's leave that discussion tonight. So thank you everyone for your participation. And we'll close this particular item, and that'll conclude our business for this evening. And so we'll move on to our city manager comments. Mr. Turner, do you have anything else to offer?
Just reminding you that we have our Snowfest coming up on Saturday the 18th. Tickets can be bought online for those who don't want to wait in line. Also, we have a lot of parking, and then we will be doing sales at it. And I know that some of you like to come or bring your children, so if you just let us know you're coming, that way we make sure we get you your vendor wristband so that you and your family can come in and enjoy. And I know some people like to wear their council shirts to these type of events. I just remind you that this is a community event. It's not a political event, so we would ask that you would come in your everyday attire.
Very good. Okay, Paul, start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fantastic discussion. Thank you for all your work, and I just appreciate everybody getting involved in the turnout here, because we all want the best community we can get. Sometimes we differ on how we want to get there, but I think everybody as a whole just wants a better community in the end. It's just what we do to get it there. We might disagree on ways to get there, but we all just agree that Universal City in the future is going to be one hell of a place to visit. Excuse my French. And also just want to, real proud about this with the Citizens Police Academy. Got with the chief tonight, and we are starting our next classes this March. It'll be starting on March 14th. Have 8 classes that'll go through May 2nd and a graduation on May 9th. We will be putting out more information out to the community about that. I'd love to have anybody interested signing up. We have a great program, and it's real limited space, so but we love it. And anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Buck, we're going to start out with you tonight because I don't want to forget you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm honored. I would like to start off by again congratulating Katie and the entire staff over at the Olympia Hills Golf Course and Event Center for being selected for those 2022 awards from the Knot and the Wedding Choir. I would also like to thank the Universal City Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association for their generous donation to the city, as well as to Waste Management for their sponsorship of so many things that go on in this city. I would like to bore everybody for just a few minutes. I'm sorry, just because I'm attending virtually doesn't mean that you're going to be spared my history lesson for Universal City. On February 11th, 1967, Red Horse Park was officially dedicated. And on February 17th, 1928, a prominent person that figured very significantly in Universal City passed away. Now granted, that was in 1928, long before Universal City was even a blip on the proverbial radar, but that person was a native of Austin, and they were a former student at the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas, most people call it Texas A&M, who died in an airplane crash. That person is William M. Randolph, for whom the air base is named. So definitely a significant event in Universal City. I reiterate, I echo the comments about the Splash Fest taking place next Saturday on the 18th. I just got a comment from the peanut gallery back over here. Snowfest is taking place next Saturday on February 18th. Everybody please go out and buy your tickets and come out and enjoy the fun. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Phil?
Another for beer.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the golf staff, everybody, the golf and event center staff, for spending your evening with us. I know you guys started super early, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys coming in, and whether you directly answered questions for us or not, or just hung out and stared at us and thought, man, I could be home watching TV right now. We really appreciate you guys coming in. I know this is a difficult conversation and affects a lot of people, so we do appreciate that. And thank you to the You guys are fantastic. Thank you for everything you do as far as putting money together for to support our police department. And lastly, and I'll bring this up because my family makes me call it this, but I was very disappointed to see that the Shelby crosswalks, protective crosswalk sign is knocked down at UC Boulevard. Hoping that's coming back soon. Because I went to go use it and the button wasn't there. In fact, the whole pole was gone.
Nobody took it out.
Somebody took that out big time. So I appreciate, hopefully we get that replaced pretty soon, because it's so much easier to cross that street with that light in place. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bear.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, ditto what Shelby said. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just want to bring to your attention, if you didn't see the SA Life and the Express News this past Sunday, Universal City Restaurants got a special recognition, and I want to open it up and show you. It says, here's what it says. It says Packbooker Road, and it highlights 4 of our establishments in Universal City. It highlights Big Aloha Alley's Cafe, Faux Star, okay, Civet, Ticket Sports Bar and Grill, and Los Tapatios. So there's 5 places that were recognized by the Express News, and they just went up and down Pat Booker and said, hey, this is a pretty good place to get some food. So there are many other establishments we have here as well, but I thought that you might, if you don't get this newspaper, which a lot of folks don't, especially in the younger populations that don't believe newspapers exist anymore. It's a nice tribute, so I'm proud of that. And if you've not had a chance to frequent any of those facilities, I think you'll truly enjoy it. So, having said that, on a happy. Okay.
One thing, if you want to come up here and fill one of the 3 positions that's going to come open, you've got about 10 days left. 17? 17.
The only other thing I want to bring up really quickly is the fact that we were given a special recognition by Our Lady of Perpetual Help Catholic Church, which happens to be my church. I had nothing to do with this, nothing to do with it at all. But it's a thank you to the city of Universal City and all kinds of comments by the students. This is special school week at OLPH, and so thank you for all you do for our city. Thank you for keeping our area safe, and it's especially designed for our police and fire people. So there's a little basket of goodies, and we'll probably share that with staff. So be aware that these are the comments by the students at the school there. So on that, again, another happy note. It is now 8:45. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Appreciate your attention.